What is it? Wow, it's a TR4 RCA. Holy moly. Hey quad folks. Yep, I'm back out in the junk pile again. Looking around at the next quad project that I think I'm going to do here as soon as the weather gets a little bit warmer and I can move some things around. Here it is. Yep, that's it. That's an old RCA TR4 from the 60s that I recently had acquired through a little bit of horse trading. Well, why TR4, you might say? Well, why not? It's an old 2-inch VTR, and well, I don't have one in the shop, and you know, it's kind of nice to maybe save one of these things from the scrapper, or worse. Nowadays, there's probably not many of them around anymore. But not just for the sake of saving a TR4, I have a couple little ideas that I want to throw into the mix here when I start rebuilding this thing. And take a look. You know, there's kind of an old school charm to these earlier VTRs, such as a TR4 or VR1100. They're not really that much of a consideration if you're going to do any serious archiving, digitizing work. But you know, it's, I guess, kind of a little bridge between the I guess what you would think the first gen, well, in this case would be the TRT1, the old TO4 RCA waveform monitor. You know, this is something that RCA built specifically, you know, for their quad and their program line. If you go back that far to the old switching consoles for master control, you know, they also had a console scope, which was pretty much a TO4. It looked a little different, you know, in the front and how it mounted into the console, but it basically was the same thing. So you know, these disappeared later on and were replaced by Tektronix 529, you know, the little cube scope, and that was a better scope, but you know, it's a little different. So I'm, you know, kind of looking forward to adding one of these back, you know, and having the old school TO4 functioning again as it was originally in the quad line. Let's see, another thing that Well, one thing that I want to change on this is right there. Now this tape guide has already been swapped out. These originally came with a non-roller guide. It was a fixed guide that had air holes drilled in it and a little air supply that, allowed the tape to ride on a film of air. I'm not really a fan of those. I'm kind of on the fence about that, whether to go original. Put the air supply back as it was. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'm kind of thinking I won't, because the roller guides seem to work so much better than those air guides did. The real complaint here on a TR4 is not so much the guide, but it's the full erase head. These early ones ran in contact with the front side, or the oxide side of the tape. And that led to problems such as magnetic scratching and, just generally wearing the oxide layer of the tape for no real good reason. But at the time, that was the state of the art, was the front side erase heads. Now, what I'm thinking of doing here is this. That is a transport plate from a TR60. And here you can see a TR60 sitting here. And you have the roller guide and the ceramic guide shoulders. Well, now they have gone to the back side, or the rear side or back side of the tape full erase head. So now the oxide layer is not in contact at all with the erase head. This rides on the back of the tape. And so that totally eliminated that problem that they had with the early erase heads interfering with the oxide and scratching it. And on a 60, it's already drilled and tapped, and it's all set where it needs to be, in the right positions, whatnot. As far as the head mounting window, this is the same proportion, and the audio heads and the pinch roller and the capstan, all this stuff, the parameters are the same. That didn't move. The only thing that moved between a 4 and a 60 is this. So that's a bit of work, I know, to remove this and replace it with a 60. And you might argue, well, it's not going to be original. No, it's not. It's going to be better than the original, and more usable, as something that, I may use from time to time. Of course, with this, I would not want to ever use it for archiving or digitizing work. One thing that is a little different here that I'm kind of debating about is the old TR4 head assemblies were low band. They were not rotary transformers yet. They were carbon brushes and springs and commutators, slip rings. I'm just debating whether to swap that out or to keep this as is. Now, one good argument that I have for is I have quite a few of these old low band carbon brush heads sitting around, and you know, this would be one good use for them is to build up the machine or rebuild this machine to use those old low band heads with. If I do that with this transport, then what that's going to entail is we're going to have to drill and tap some holes on the back side here in order to mount the pieces. See, this is one piece, this is one piece, and this is one piece. So you have three different pieces that are bolted separately to the back of the transport. On a 60, which is what this thing here is, and this thing here is, a 60 is one casting, that's one piece. And so it bolts up, I think, with 3 screws, 1 and 2 at the top. And the 60 was a little different in that it had an electronic guide servo, you know, to automatically adjust the TP, you know, as you're running. The 4 did not have that. It was totally manual. You know, there was no automatic guide control on a 4. However, this one here has over the years has been upgraded to a high band, low band color, high band. That's normally where I think the 7.5 and 15 switch would be. And so it has had some upgrades. Now, what I'm thinking of doing, why would I go to all this work, is this. I just happen to have a set of boards that are 405 and 819 standards that I could plug into this thing and make a few modifications and modify this machine for 819 French standard. A few years ago, when I was working on the Indiana University quads with Rob, I can't remember his last name, Rob Mobley at IU. I had done a 405 British quad for them. That was part of their collection there. And at that time, I had modified a VR2000B here in the shop to do 405, and so to do that job for them. Well, in the course of all that, working with the 405 conversion and working with Rob there at the university on their stuff, it came about that he had introduced me to a fellow named Etan Marchand at the INA in Paris, France. And so I'd spoken with Etan at some length about the 819 standard, and that resulted ultimately in them sending me some test tapes for 819 to see if I could do something here at that time with the VR2000 and change it around to do 819, and then figure out a way to capture it to a computer file. And so that's just kind of been in the back burner cooking for a few years now. And so I have the test tapes, and quite honestly, I didn't know I had these modules until I got to looking around one day. And I discovered I had the whole set. I knew I had one or maybe two, but I didn't know that I had all four. So that was kind of a nice surprise to find out I was better off than I knew. So I had the modules and the test tapes, and sort of had an idea of how to modify a sync generator. Now 819 is all monochrome. There's no color component to any of that, so thank goodness. it's a lot simpler because of that. So the sync generator is not really a big problem. And a while back, I did a little horse trading with the folks up at the MBT, the Museum of Broadcast Technology up in Rhode Island. And I wound up with one of the old RCA TG3s that I've modified it to do 819 syncs. So that's another little piece of the puzzle that's kind of fell into place. And so now this thing came along, and so what I'm thinking is I'm just going to tear into this thing and just do a full-on restoration and get it running and get everything put back and painted or whatever it needs. I notice around the bottom of this one there is quite a bit of rust on the bottom base, and I think once I get it tore down in the shop out back, I can jack this thing up and take the bolts out and take that whole base out from under it, and give it a good paint job and replace the wheels. I think there's a couple of them that's either broke or flat that need replacing. And so that would be a major improvement, just to have good wheels under it again. But it's a survivor, and it's all in one piece, and looks like a pretty doable project. So this will be coming up here in the next few days and weeks and months over the summer. We'll drag it out of my garage and get it down into the shop and tear into it, and we'll have some fun with RCAs. Well, I hope you like this little this little trip into the past with the old RCA, and if you like, follow along for the trip over the next days, weeks, months, and we'll go through this thing and fix it up and get it running again.